Today, about half of the 2020 Democrats are campaigning across the nation. Some are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to make their pitch to the oldest Latino civil rights group in the nation. Mayor Pete Buttigieg is out with his new plan that he hopes will drum up support among African-American voters. And frontrunner Joe Biden is in New York, where he plans to go after President Trump in a foreign policy speech. Our NBC team are covering the latest on these stories. Vaughn Hillyard in Milwaukee, Josh Lederman in Washington, D.C., and Mike Memoli right here in the newsroom in New York City. Vaughn, we got a number of candidates and Dr. Jill Biden expected to address this group in Milwaukee. What are you looking out for?
Exactly. There's 6 presidential candidates here. Stephanie, you have Tulsi Gabbard, who just spoke at a breakfast here this morning. You've got Marianne Williamson, Julian Castro, Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. Those candidates will be speaking here later tonight, as well as Dr. Jill Biden, who is about to take the stage here. I should note, Joe Biden is not here, but actually just 1 year ago, he was the keynote speaker at the LULAC convention. And as a reference point, he actually first spoke at a LULAC convention back in 1973. There's about 20,000 folks affiliated with the convention here, and this comes in, it's interesting, literally folks are walking into this convention hall here in Milwaukee as the news that NBC is reporting, not only that these ICE raids are slated to begin on Sunday in 10 major American cities, but also, as Hallie Jackson...
We just lost our sound with Vaughn. Let's turn to Josh. Josh, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Josh, let's talk Mayor Pete. We know that race issues have been a big hurdle for the mayor. He continues to poll extremely low among black voters. He's got a new plan out. What is it?
Yeah, Stephanie, an 18-page plan that his campaign hopes will be the most comprehensive of all of the Democrats who are competing in the primary. And it covers a lot of different areas, including offering free tuition to public universities for low-income students, directing a quarter of federal contracting dollars to small businesses from underserved communities, investing in banks that are owned by minorities, an overhaul of the criminal justice system, creating health equity zones to address areas that are disparate in terms of outcomes for health, and also access to voting rights, including automatic voter registration. And Stephanie, the key question for Pete Buttigieg is whether this is going to be enough to get black voters who have been quite skeptical about him up until now to take him seriously, or whether they're looking for something that is more visceral, more emotional to show that he gets it, as opposed to a wonky policy plan.
All right, let's talk Joe Biden a moment. Mike, Joe Biden is talking foreign policy. It appears he's going to go after the president.
That's right. I mean, it's been a rough few weeks for the vice president, as you know, and today is all about getting back to really the strength, the core arguments for Joe Biden, his candidacy. One is playing to what is one of his biggest perceived strengths, which is foreign policy, and the other is reminding Democrats about really the stakes of this election, what would happen if Trump is elected to another 4 years. He is going to hit the president hard. We got a little bit of a taste of that in a tweet this morning. He refers to what he calls the Trump doctrine, embracing dictators, threatening war, embarrassing the U.S. He says it's time to reclaim American leadership. There was a video with that tweet, and interestingly, it included that moment at the UN that we remember where actually the delegates at the General Assembly laughed at the president when he talked about how much he had achieved. And, you know, of course, I had a chance to travel with the vice president several times when he was in office, and, you know, he has relationships with world leaders. We're going to hear him today call for a summit of global democracies in his first year of office. One of the pillars of his campaign, also foreign policy, is also going to be what he calls a foreign policy for the middle class, talking about globalization. It'll be interesting to hear some of the details of what that means, especially as it relates to trade.
No doubt. All right, I want to bring Kurt Bardella and Jason Johnson back. Kurt, let's talk Joe Biden for a second. This idea of foreign policy nostalgia. He's going to talk about reinstating the relationships and the standing we had with our foreign allies before President Trump took office. What's your thought?
Well, we've seen since Trump's taken office a withdrawal, really, from the U.S., from the global community that has left us vulnerable and allowed other nations like China to step in and supplant us as a leader on the global stage. I think Trump's talking...
But hold on a second. China was taking huge strides before President Trump took office. We can't yes, things have changed with our allies in the last 2 years, but as far as world powers go, China didn't wake up 2 years ago.
No, but I think that the vacuum that Trump has created by withdrawing from certain partnerships, agreements, pulling out of even the Paris Climate Agreement has allowed other people to step in and accelerate the path that they were already on before. Trump has made it easier for them to succeed. And then also returning to just the normal norms of not having relationships with dictators like North Korea, like Russia. That's what Biden's going to talk about. He's going to talk about a time where we didn't hold up and give legitimacy to brutal dictators who act against American interests, who launch attacks on our own democratic process, and look at them as idols, as people that he wants to be like, which is what Trump has been doing since he's been president. So I think for Biden, this is about, as was just reported, returning to his strength, his core, looking presidential, going beyond just the other 24 or 23 other candidates running for president, but going to a place that he's comfortable where he can get back on offense.
All right, well, Jason, the other candidates arguing against Joe Biden are saying, we don't want to return.
Right.
America wants a change. That's what Pete Buttigieg wants voters to say. Is his new plan, which appears to be addressing not so much income inequality, more opportunity inequality, is it going to make a difference to African-American voters who he's polling about 2% support from?
And Stephanie, that's an improvement because he was at 0% for like 3 consecutive polls.
Okay, but two's up from zero. What's this new?
I don't know that this plan is going to work. And I had a long conversation actually with members of his staff this morning about this new Douglas plan. Some parts of it I think are really innovative. The idea that if you got a Pell Grant or a federal grant in school, if you hire 3 employees within the first 5 years of your business, will wipe away your loans. That incentivizes me. It basically turns your grant into almost a loan for you to start your business. I think that's a good idea. What I always question about Mayor Pete is, why should I believe you can do this? I didn't see any examples of this when you were mayor. Why should I believe that you have the skills politically to get this done if you actually become president of the United States? Also, this Douglas plan, as extensive as it is, and I've read certain parts of it and had discussions about others, it's similar to the C.J. Walker plan, this Reginald plan. All of these plans sound wonderful, but if you can't tell me how you're going to pay for it, I don't think black folks...
Can't you say the same thing to Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders?
Most definitely, and that's the main criticism that I think a lot of voters have. These are wonderful plans, Medicare for all, free school for all. How are you going to pay for this stuff? And I think when it comes to black voters in particular, look, there is legitimate skepticism when people throw out big old plans to say, I'm going to pay for everything and I'm going to fix racism. And the immediate question that we ask is, what did you do at home?
All right, then. Jason Johnson, Kurt Bardella. That's the question. What did you do at home? We'll be right back.